Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Vito Paulekas, the First Hippie. And of course I'm referring to social engineering, banker anthropology, clandestine service managed, fads, trends, music, and fashion. In other words, in the Matrix, nothing is authentic. Everything is fake. Everything is run through a repertory theater conference room. Anyway, Vito Paulekas did not come from under a rock. He was born on May 20th, 1913 in Lowell, Massachusetts. Now, Lowell, Massachusetts is code for Cambridge, Massachusetts, because it's next door to Cambridge, which is home to Harvard University, which is an Ivy League clandestine service indoctrination center. So what I'm saying is Vito Paulekas was born adjacent to the Harvard University campus, which includes Radcliffe Harvard, where Abigail Folger first attended. Anyway, Vito Palinkas, he lived to age 79. He passed away in Sonoma County October 25th, 1992. He went bye-bye. But not before he created quite a social engineering pop. All right, what do I tell you here? So he bounced around Massachusetts for a while, and supposedly he, at age 25, he attempted to rob a movie theater with a loaded pistol. And he, not only did he fail, he was apprehended, arrested, and he's looking at a 25-year prison sentence for armed robbery of a movie theater. They like to use that a lot. Remember, that's how they said that Lee Oswald, they called the police on Lee Oswald, and like 24 policemen descended on the Dallas theater. It's the last time, you should forget about buying a ticket, right? Like, wow, the cops are going to be here if I don't pay my 50 cents to buy a ticket, right? Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that he was apparently sent off to prison or the county jail. That was in 1938 when he was 25 years old, but he was released by 1942 and he joined the Merchant Marines. Then he was honorably discharged, even though he's a felon. Felony armed robbery. Armed robbery is a felony in Massachusetts. Anyway, he's now out of the Marines, the Merchant Marines, and it's 1942, and World War II is up and running, right? And we don't have a lot of intel information of what happened, but in 1946, he magically appears in Los Angeles. Now, he's 33 years old when he appears in Los Angeles. That's right. I said that Vito Paulekas from Lowell, Massachusetts, first appeared in Los Angeles, West Hollywood, to be specific, at age 33. What do you think the chances of that happening in real life? All right, well, anyway, he magically sets about opening an art studio, and you're going to love this. I have the address for you. He somehow, with no money and no references other than his felony record, he's able to secure a lease at 303 North Laurel Avenue. Now, that's not Laurel Canyon Boulevard, but it's close. It's in close proximity. It's a few blocks below Hollywood Boulevard, which is below Sunset Boulevard. It's probably 7 blocks south of that on Laurel Avenue. It's close to Laurel Canyon Boulevard, but it's not. It's a different avenue. Laurel Avenue, 303. Now, that's not a 33, but if you get rid of a 0, which has no value, you'd have 3 3s. You'd have 2 3s. It'd be 33. He's 33, and he is residing in a apartment above a downstairs art studio. So on the ground floor of Laurel Avenue is an artistic studio that does all manner of artwork, dance and clay moldings and watercolors and whatever other kind of artwork you can imagine. Anyway, he's 33 and he's renting 303 North Laurel Avenue in West Hollywood, below Sunset Boulevard. Okay, so time goes by. I'm going to skip over some things. And in 1961, a 17-year-old young woman whose real name is Sue Ann C. Schaefer, she walks into this art studio because she was on a mission for artistic achievements. And she sees there's dancing going on, and she's interested in this, and she comes back to the art studio a number of times, and quick like a bunny rabbit, she agrees to marry Vito Paulekas, who is now 48 years old, and she's just turned 18. So Sue Ann Schaefer is going to marry a man 30 years older than her, and they have not been dating for very long, if at all, if you believe the story. So they get married on July 7th, 1961. So now we have Vito Paulekas, 48 years old, married to Sue Ann Schaefer, who has changed her name and goes by Sue. That's spelled S-Z-O-U. And she is attributed to having created the hippie fashion look. I'm going to call poppycock on that, people. I don't believe an 18-year-old little girl is going to be the designer of hippie fashions. But that's what the Wikipedia wants you to believe. They want you to believe that this little 17, 18-year-old girl is now married to an artistic who's a felony armed robber. By the way, whose first cousin married Winthrop Rockefeller back east. See, it turns out that Vito's father's brother, in other words, his uncle, his daughter married Winthrop Rockefeller. So there's a relationship with scion category here. Eva Paul was his first cousin, and she married Winthrop Rockefeller. Anyway, getting back to the art studio, there they are. Now let me read you some hippie talk. As the 1960s dawned on America, there were no clubs on the Sunset Boulevard at that time. The legendary Suro nightclub had closed its doors by 1957. But all of that was about to change with a vice cop from Chicago. In January 1964, former vice policeman Elmer Valentine opened the doors to what is now the world-famous Whiskey A Go-Go, which had primarily been a nude dancing club before it was the Whiskey A Go-Go. And to be specific, the Whiskey A Go-Go was opened at 8901 Sunset Boulevard sometime in 1964. I don't have the exact date on that. You should know that Lou Adler, along with Paul McCartney's friend Peter Asher, who's the older brother to Jane Asher, who Paul McCartney lived with and dated for 5 years in London, England. First they lived at the Asher home with Peter and his parents. Peter's parents and Paul McCartney. It's a lot of P's, right? Peter's parents, Paul McCartney, and Jane Asher all living together in the same house before Paul McCartney got his own home on Cavendish Avenue, number 7, where Jane Asher moved in with him until she came home and discovered Paul McCartney in bed with Francie Schwartz, a Jewish girl from New York City. That was sort of torpedoed the Jane Asher engagement to Paul McCartney. That was in 1968, in case you're wondering. Where for all those Paul McCartney conspiracy people out there, according to them, Paul McCartney was murdered in 1967. But if Paul McCartney was dead and there was a fake Paul McCartney, then it was the fake Paul McCartney who had to have been sleeping with Jane Asher for a couple of years, or at least 18 months, without her knowledge. because she was with the original Paul McCartney from 1963. So you're going to have to tell me how Jane Asher and Peter Asher didn't realize that they played a switcheroo with the Paul McCartney. So anyway, I'm getting off track, I understand, but you've got to remember, I get a lot of people that tell me that John Fitzgerald Kennedy was really Jimmy Carter, and that Sharon Tate is really Marla Maples, and that Paul McCartney was killed in a car accident in 1967, so that there would only be the fake Paul McCartney that was engaged to Jane Asher. So that's just too many things that you'd have to overcome for that story to be implausible. So Lou Adler, who's partners with Peter Asher, of course, who was an executive at Abbey Road Record Studios, if you didn't know, he was in charge of A&R, which scouted talent like James Taylor, for example. He enters into a partnership with Lou Adler, who's a Jewish man from Chicago, and they open the Roxy Theater on September 23rd, 1973. And then quick like a bunny rabbit, the Whiskey A Go-Go opens up very quickly. And then Lou Adler opens the Rainbow Room in 1966. And the clubs come back to life. You should know that the section of Sunset Boulevard where I'm referring to is about 1.5 miles long, and it's in an unincorporated area of Los Angeles County. So it's not inside the city of Los Angeles, and it's not inside the city of Hollywood. It's in this little zone, which makes sense because many homicides occurred within that zone, and they were all investigated by the sheriff's department, since the municipal police that was not in their zip code, right? So you've got the murder of Jack Cassidy, you've got the murder of Sal Mineo, you've got the murder of Art Linklater's daughter Diane, you've got the murder of Connie Monty, you've got the murder of Albert Decker, Thomas Albert Decker. None of those murders were within the city limits of Los Angeles. Do you see? You see, it's a little pocket. Now that's changed today. Now those areas are part of the city of Hollywood or part of the city of Los Angeles. In other words, that unincorporated zone of Hollywood has been absorbed into the cities of Hollywood and Los Angeles. So, but back in the 1960s and 70s, it was true that it was an unincorporated part of Los Angeles County. Anyway, there was a whole number of clubs that magically opened during the 1960s, just in time for the hippie movement and the psychedelic movement, which was being presented to us in Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, and being presented to us in Hollywood along Sunset Boulevard. So what I'm trying to tell you is, or also known as the Sunset Strip. So what I wanted to tell you is that all of these are clandestine service events. All those clubs are owned by the CIA. They have fake owners like Eddie Nash, who's from Jerusalem. He's a Christian Jewish man from Jerusalem. It's not his real name. Elmore Valentine, he's from Chicago. Lou Adler, he's from somewhere else. Peter Asher's from London, England. It fascinates me that all these people from New York or Chicago or London come to Los Angeles to tell us how to put on a nightclub. Like there's no one in Los Angeles or California that knows how to run a strip club or understands how to present bands on a stage. Of course they do. But we got to bring in Bill Graham. We got to bring in Lou Adler. We got to bring in Elmer Valentine. We got to bring in Eddie Nash. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. And so anyway, we're talking about over a dozen clubs that pop up quick like a bunny rabbit over 3 or 4 years, all over the Sunset Strip. Anyway, that's all part of the rollout for the hippie movement. So we have hippie clothes being designed in an art studio. Dancers are then hired. I don't know how they get the money to pay the dancers. There are 35 dancers. Then we have Vito Paulekas hires a partner, obtains a partner. It's presented to us. He's a friend. No, he's not. He's a business partner. And they roll out this troubadours of dancers right on cue. And I mean right on cue. Okay? It's called a roving troupe of self-styled freaks led by a now rebranded beatnik Vito Paulekas and his trusty, lusty sidekick Carl Frazani. Carl Frazani. You could look him up. I haven't drilled into him. Anyway, so he's the leader of the dance troupe. And of course, they have a name for the dance troupe. I'll get to that. They are immediately integrated in with Frank Zappa, okay, and the Byrds, who apparently rehearse in the art studio when the art classes are not happening. The Byrds rehearse in this address number 303 North Laurel Avenue, just south, nearby where the recording studios are. So you got the Byrds in there. We got Frank Zappa hanging out with Carl Franzini and Sue and Vito Paulekas. We've got Jim Morrison and the Doors become regular friends. All this is put together, right? I mean, this is not organic. This is a fake group. All right, so recruits for the Vito's dance troupe were very easy to come by. Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure the CIA interviewed them first. Among other firsts, according to the legend, Vito operated the first crash pad in Los Angeles in an open house to countless runaways where everybody was welcome for the night. Does this sound like the Charlie Manson mendacity to you? This is all going on in the early 1960s. Okay? Okay, a former groupie by the name of Pamela DeMar described the sort of scene that would go down at the crash pad in the basement of 303 Laurel Avenue. In one instance, two tenderly young girls were tonguing each other. Lesbian sex. All right, then rock producer Lou Adler said that Vito would come in every night at his his Roxy Theater with his entourage of mostly 4 or 5 really good-looking girls. It was a weird parallel because these good-looking girls are teenagers, and Vito is 50 years old by now. He's in his 50s. Because this would be 1964, and Vito would be like 51, 52 by 1964. So it was kind of a non-violent Manson situation. Well, that's a little play on word because Charlie Miles Maddox was completely non-violent. Only the television and the media tells you that Manson is violent. No, he's not. No, he's not. Anyway, in the beginning, Vito and Sue, they started having marital troubles in 1966, and no kidding, they're 30 years age difference. What do they have in common other than the CIA job assignment they have? This is all laid out in Life magazine, which is a clandestine service magazine. They did stories about the magic that happened at 303 North Laurel Avenue fake art studio. All right, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm going to post the article. You can read this at your leisure. And you should know that the romance ended for Vito Palinkas and Susan C. Schaefer. They were divorced in 1968. So they were married 7 years, I believe. No, they were married till 1975. So they were married 14 years. But they moved up to Sonoma County in 1968. That was the deal. 1968, Vito and his wife, Susan Schaefer, moved to Sonoma County. They moved to Tate, which is outside of Santa Rosa. This coincides perfectly with the Renaissance pleasure fairs being rolled out in Marin County, which is in close proximity to Tate, which is near Petaluma. It's not that far from Black Point, Marin County. Not that far. That's the Petaluma River. And Vito and Susan were living not too far from the Petaluma River, not too far from Petaluma, just outside Petaluma. Today, Susan is living allegedly in Sebastopol, which is close by. It's near the Bohemian Grove, and it's close to Tate also. It's in chicken ranching country near Petaluma. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you this. That's all I'm going to talk about, is that it integrates in with the Laurel Canyon military complex, and all the artists, Neil Young from Toronto, Canada, to the Jim Morrison, the Jim Morrison Doors, to Frank Zappa, and all of the goings-ons in Laurel Canyon. So I thought you would get a kick out of that. It's 20 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up. Please like and subscribe my videos. What I'm trying to tell you is all the psychedelic colors, all the LSD, all the amphetamines that were distributed to campuses, all the music is fake. It's programmed by older people. I don't believe Paul McCartney wrote any of his songs. I don't believe he wrote one song. And I don't believe John Lennon wrote any music either. And I don't believe Neil Young wrote his lyrics either. And I don't believe Don McLean wrote American Pie. I don't. After doing this analysis and taking many showers afterward, I'm here to tell you everything about Hollywood is fake. Everything. The television is fake. The film industry is fake. The porn industry is fake. And the music industry is the fakest of them all. So they're all integrated. They're all social media content. Porn is content. Hollywood films are content. Television is content. It's child entertainment. It's adult entertainment. It's X-rated entertainment. We have the Whiskey A Go-Go, was formerly a nude dancing club. Now we have the Body Shop, which has been completely reworked because, you can't sell alcohol and have nude girls dancing on a stage. So now you drink Red Bull, and they've changed the hours to 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning. When I went there, it was completely nude, and they sold alcohol and club sandwiches, and you could go in there like at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know what the time it closed. I went in there at lunchtime, and it was a classy joint. So I don't know what goes on at the Body Shop now. I don't believe they're profitable. I don't believe any of these clubs are profitable. So I believe they're all propped up by the clandestine services that wants those clubs open to distribute their social engineering fake messages, like the Viper Club, where Phoenix Bottom was killed. River Phoenix, whose real name is River Bottom. And Joaquin Phoenix, that's not his name, it's Joaquin Bottom. They have a Jewish mother, and her name is Bottom. So it's River Bottom, who's the eldest of 5 children, and Joaquin Bottom, rebranded as Phoenix. Phoenix is fake. The Rising of the Phoenix. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.